You're watching Exit 1055 with your host, Richard Rose.
Hey, good morning to you. I'm Richard Rose. Welcome to Exit 1055 Long Island. This is your TV 1055 show about all things Long Island. In just a few moments, well, it's just 2 days now till Halloween, so we'll get a sneak peek at one of Long Island's most popular haunted houses and why it's all for a frightfully good cause. But we begin today with the 5-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. On this date, in 2012, the enormous storm caused terrible surge damage, particularly along Long Island's South Shore. In all, 50,000 homes suffered damage. 11,000 homes were so badly damaged, their owners successfully applied for some of the billions in federal relief aid. Yet, 5 years later, only 2/3 are back in their fully repaired homes. More than 3,400 homes remain unfinished. And when it comes to elevating them to protect against the next storm, well, only 1/3 of the 3,400 homes that were approved for elevation have actually been raised. So where do things stand on this 5th anniversary? Joining us to answer that are Ben Jackson, a Freeport contractor. He's worked with hundreds of Sandy homeowners to get their properties restored. And Anthony Henry, whose Massapequa home was badly damaged. He now wants a state deadline relaxed so he can elevate his home in order to safeguard it should and when the floodwaters return. And welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Ben, let me start with you, because we've been talking about this for years. You've been on the show right from the very beginning. How many of your clients are back in their homes? How many are still not finished?
I'd say we probably got about 150 people home. Right now, we have about 30 jobs in the queue, 40 maybe.
That's more than 80% complete. That sounds better than the general average. So you've had a little bit more, a better percentage of completing them than the average, because that's not the story island-wide, right?
No, that's not the story. A lot of these jobs are stretching out for numerous reasons. Some of it's the contractor, some of it's the red tape, paperwork. Utilities have been extremely difficult.
What do you say is the biggest unfinished business so far?
Biggest unfinished business? The elevations. There's only about 1/3 of them have been, 1/3 of the 3,400 homes that are going to be elevated have been completed.
And that raises a number of interesting questions, which we'll get into. But let me illustrate it by talking to you, Mr. Henry. Anthony Henry, you and your family live in Massapequa, near Nassau County South Shore. We have some video of what it was like back then in the Massapequa area. We have video that shows how badly Massapequa was hit by the floodwaters. You could see it right there. I know I did several stories there the very first week, and I saw hundreds of damaged homes. We also have a couple of photos that show how the floodwaters invaded your single-story home, Mr. Henry. Tell us about what you've been through.
To say it was hell would be a good start. It actually started the day before. My wife and daughters had to evacuate to my brother-in-law's house. I was supposed to work the next day for a 24-hour shift. I had to go in about 15 hours early because we were shutting down public transportation.
What do you do?
In the bridges. I'm a fireman.
So you had to go out and respond to this?
Yes, sir.
So that's even more. Here you are responding to it, and your own home is damaged. That had to have been very difficult to go through that day, even though your heart's in the right place to help people, and that's what you do for a living. Your thoughts must have been on your home the whole time, no?
Actually, no. There was so much for us to do, you couldn't even think about it. It wasn't until we got relieved at around dawn that I got back to the...
Well, I think it's a special gene for first responders, right, Ben? Because, I mean, we're all amazed that you would say something like that. I think most of us would be like, gosh, what happened to my house? And then you went through it like so many of the people we've dealt with or interviewed through the years. You've been through several appeals with the various agencies, FEMA, New York Rising. You had a dispute, a legal dispute with a contractor whose work was done or not done. And then you had to spend lawyer costs, legal costs in order to fight that. Bottom line, you did receive some money from FEMA. You did get some money from New York Rising. How much did you get, and how much did it actually cost you? Was it enough to cover what you did?
The initial adjustment was about half, or actually less than half of what it would cost for just bare bones to get back in. After fighting with FEMA for almost a year, it was a daily fight for my wife. We ended up getting another $36,000. And then New York Rising, we got an additional $30,000 from that, but included in that was money to elevate.
But was it enough to elevate? Did you have enough money to elevate? Because it's about $150,000 on average to elevate a home.
It was nowhere near enough to elevate. We're on a slab, so basically everything on the first floor, which we had already paid twice to have repaired, would get destroyed. So it just wasn't enough. There was more money that we could have applied for, but our caseworker did not communicate that.
Now, we talked to New York Rising, and, you know, you didn't apply in time for the deadline, they say, and then your hardship appeal was denied. Why didn't you apply in time for the deadline? Were you back and forth on this?
We had applied. We had to pull out because we just didn't think we would be able to do it, besides the fact of how much more it was going to cost us. My wife was getting sick. She had to have a tumor removed from her thyroid. I was sick. We had a daughter diagnosed with 2 autoimmune diseases, which are brought on and exacerbated by stress. We did what we thought was the right thing at the time. Had we had better information from New York Rising, we would have stayed in.
Ben, that's a very typical story, isn't it?
Yes,
that people are like, they're overwhelmed.
Yes.
You know, and you have an agency, there are rules. We all know there are rules. You're supposed to follow the rules. But this was a unique situation. These people's lives were shattered, right? And then things like this happen. Well, should this deadline be extended and relaxed?
I definitely think it should. I mean, I think there's a prime example of it. There are extenuating circumstances. I think they even applied for a hardship and didn't receive it, which I have no idea why. I mean, if anybody deserves it, a firefighter, I mean,
And you're familiar with their case.
Absolutely.
Now, what are you going to do since your appeal was denied, your hardship appeal? What are you going to do next?
Well, we filed a FOIA request to get all the information because we don't believe that proper procedures were filed with HUD. And what we're hoping is that this new program will include us in, because if they have the time and the money to include in other houses in Staten Island, Brooklyn, and their goal is to get everybody out, then they can reopen for Long Island.
Yeah, because, it's kind of arbitrary to talk about deadlines somewhat. Not to take a stand here, but we have routinely reported dozens of times these deadlines being extended for various programs, were they not? Ben?
They were extended, and that's part of the confusion. They were continually extended. This has been going on at least 4 or 5 times that I know about. No, we're stopping now. No, we're extending it. No, we're extending it. No, we're extending it. So people don't know what to believe and what not to believe.
Especially when nobody thought it would take 5 years, and we're probably looking at least another 5 years, are we not?
Oh, at least. At least.
So you see, I mean, we all thought New York Rising would be out of existence by now because they're supposed to shut down once this is all done. Yet there they are.
Yeah, yeah.
So, the question I have, and I posed this to them, and I didn't get an answer yet, because it seems obvious to me that if there are folks like Anthony Henry, and then other folks who chose not to do it, for whatever reasons there are we going to wind up with a seesaw zigzag look? I think we already have that kind of look.
Absolutely.
And what's the risk there if only some of the homes are elevated that we spent federal tax money for that we thought it was necessary, and then because of deadlines or whatever reason you say, oh, forget about these people? You're going to get some that are okay and the rest are going to get flooded? Aren't they going to have to pay for that again?
Sure. Well, we all have to pay for it. I mean, they're going to have to be funded. We can't just let these families go out on the street. Right now, if a storm like Sandy came, you're going to wipe out 80% of Long Island, South Shore Long Island. After all this work and money has been spent, it's still not enough.
Yeah, because, I mean, the premise behind it, Anthony, is that the reason that they would give you this money is because they didn't want your house to get flooded again, because there's a presumption these stormwaters will come back. So how do you feel about the idea of watching? There are several of your neighbors that have raised their homes already. What do you feel about what might happen in the next storm in the situation you're in right now?
Basically, from the end of August through the end of November, I'm just worried sick about if we're going to get flooded again.
Yeah, and that really is everybody's concern. Meanwhile, there has been one change that you lobbied for, Ben, and you and a number of other contractors. What is it? It's about the money being directly sent to the contractor. Why would that be better? And how would you protect against any potential fraud from that?
Well, I don't know that it's better. I think it's been developed because there are a lot of people who can't handle hiring a contractor, going through construction, finding an architect, designing what's... So this program is run by the state, good, bad, or indifferent. It's good that they're helping certain people who can't mentally get through it in order to elevate their homes.
So the last message you want to give to the folks who are in charge of running this program, both of you gentlemen?
Look, I'm happy we live in a country where we do help people out.
That's true.
But I think let's cut some of the red tape and some of the BS.
If you really want to help everybody, then help everybody.
Yep.
Well, there you have it. These are real people that are going through this. And, Ben, you see it every day. I've seen you lend your share of hugs. You even have a group that goes out and volunteers to help people fix things on the weekend. It's so
Absolutely.
bad. And here we are 5 years later still talking about it. How many more years will it take? Well, however many it is, we're with you. Ben Jackson, Anthony Henry, thank you for stopping in with us today.
Thank you.
And when we return, first they wanted them, now they have regrets. The campaign by some downtown businesses and their workers to remove new meters in Bayshore. Next.